email, and I was like, maybe we should just start over and make this work. Yeah,
That's all right. Okay. It'll come back up again as we chat.
Okay, so I just want to shut this.
Yeah, it's like 6 hours with your kids can feel like a lifetime. And then they leave the house and I'm like, well, that was only 10 minutes. How did 6 hours go?
I know. And I just want to ask you, your last name is pronounced Sumrell?
Yep.
Okay. So perfect. Do you want to start as an introduction or do you want me to start as an
introduction? You can go ahead.
Okay. So, hi, this is Stacey, the Minchip Mama. And today I'm very excited to welcome Megan Sumrell. And I am very excited for this to be our first chat and for this to be one of our first interviews in the Minchip Mama series. And so Megan, I think I'm going to turn it over to you to do an introduction because you will do yourself much more justice than me.
I just know myself a little better, yeah. I guess. So hi, I'm Megan. I am here in North Carolina, right outside of downtown Raleigh, but we were just chatting. I actually, a lifetime ago, lived in Manhattan in my very, very early 20s. I did not last long in the city. I only lived there for 6 months, but I love it. I love going back. And I am a time management expert for overwhelmed women. I did not, when I was 6 years old, when someone said, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was not I want to, be in time management. It happened very organically for me out of a need. But I also have over 20 years of a career in the software space where my zone of genius was optimizing systems and processes for software teams to build and develop software better, faster, cheaper. So all of the certifications, trainings, everything that I spent over 20 years doing, what I didn't know were preparing me to now do what I do, which is I'm far more passionate about there. So that's kind of the connection of how I moved, out of this very corporate IT space into, serving women and helping us all feel less overwhelmed and have work-life harmony.
I think that's interesting. And I think it's interesting. I have a similar where I worked kind of in the business world, preparing for the post-business world. And I was in high-end customer service for a very long time. And, that kind of fits into every world that you're in. But I've been the PTA president twice, and that's very much high-end customer service.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of, it's interesting. I think that it's amazing when you can look at a job or a career that you had and then pull out what's relevant to what you're doing now and really see how it is your training, even if it's not
and how no time's wasted. I didn't waste 1 minute of my life in that career because it's not what I'm doing now. Yeah. Oh my God, I loved it. It was challenging. I learned so much. And I love that I'm now able to craft and mold what I've learned, but apply it to something that I'm more passionate about now that, wasn't a need for me back then.
And isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit before we started, just kind of about how I got to you and how this is so interesting and relevant to my life right now. And what I was saying was basically with my blog, The Minchip Mama, I started it, just about 8 years ago, but it really wasn't until this past September, which was only, 6 months ago, that I started really wanting to hustle and make it into a business. And I am a stay-at-home mom. This kind of was my hobby. I'm trying to make it into a, let's call it a profit center or a job. Once my kids all started school, I was thinking I need to get back out there. I need to find a way to make some money. And then I realized I had all of this work for years that it would be much more interesting to me to take all of this and make it into a job instead of look for a job to make the job what I wanted. And with that said, I find myself every day sitting in my house and trying to figure out, where do I start? I've read a lot of stuff about time management. I've read some places that say, don't check your email first thing in the morning because you go down that hole. I've gone down that hole. Don't look at socials. I look at socials, I go down that hole. But, I think as a content creator in this world right now in 2022, I say this to my kids, like there's so many balls flying at your face that you need to do and catch that it's almost like you don't know where to start. So I'm an organized person. And I'm an organized person and I'm a planner. And, I made myself lists where I start with X, Y, and Z and do these things first. And of course, I don't follow them, or, I just want to clean out my inbox because then I don't stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning going through it. But then, it's like, do you know the book, If You Bring a Mouse a Cookie? Or
use that, yeah, like give a mouse a cookie.
I feel like that every day. Oh, I check an email, which brings me to a website, which leads me to a social post, which leads me to this. And then at the end, I left my snack at school. Where's my backpack? Exactly. And I constantly feel like I'm on that like hamster wheel of being a mouse and like having a cookie.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to talk to you. I'm excited to talk to you about how, people that work from home can set up good time management practices. Also, my husband is an entrepreneur and he has his own company, so he works from home. So I joke that we have like a workspace.
And I have the same at home as well. Yeah.
Right. And the running joke used to be like when he was in an office and I worked from home by myself, he'd be like, "Oh, did you have any good water cooler talk today?" And I'm like, "You're so mean." And now it's like if he's in the kitchen and I go get more water, I'm like, "So did you see The Office last night?" So, part of it is nice to have someone to talk to in the few minutes a day that we actually exchange words. But, it's like a running joke that we put the kids on the bus, we walk back and we say, see it for, and we walk into different rooms.
I mean, it's very same here at our house as well. Yeah.
And I think many families are dealing with that in this post-current, are we in it?
Yeah. And what's interesting for us, we started that before the pandemic. So even in my corporate life, my last 7 years, I had a home office because I worked for companies in different states. So if I wasn't traveling, I'd been working from home for a long time. And then about a year or a little more before the pandemic hit, my husband's role changed with his job. And he was now, because he supports a market in Georgia and we live here in North Carolina. So then he was at home. So we were thankfully had worked through a lot of those because I'd had the house to myself for years. And all of a sudden he's home. I'm like, whoa, hey, this is not okay. But we had that chance to work through how we both co-worked at home prior to the pandemic hitting, which served us well.
So you had training wheels. That's amazing. That's great. That's really nice. And I feel, I think one of the biggest challenges when you work from home is, I should say 2 challenges. Number one, and also I think that having like a smartphone is this, like there's no boundaries, like there's no work hour boundaries, right? You don't shut the light off, walk out and you're done. And also I think and we were kind of talking about this a little bit before, but like you see a pile of laundry, but you have a deadline, but the laundry is irking you and you know that it'll take you just 10 minutes to do the laundry. But and
that leads to 10 minutes to something else, to 10 minutes to something else. Yeah.
And then you're going to school to get a cookie. Exactly. Yep. So,
that's why I kind of lean in on this whole, like we're living such tightly integrated lives in ways we weren't before. And the vast majority of the, productivity experts, I'll say that in quotes, and time management strategies aren't addressing that. And that's why I think they're failing a lot of people, and they're especially failing women because they're also not addressing, this isn't bad or good. It's just, let's just call it what it is. But we do tend to carry the emotional load of our family. Yeah. And
I like to also call it the invisible load.
Yeah. But waking up and saying, what's my top 3 for the day? Maybe your top 3 is you are so stressed about your kid that day because of that bully. And how do you put that on paper for the day? And so again, they're not addressing this incredibly integrated life, and they aren't you can't task list your emotional load as a woman. And so if you don't get a system that does acknowledge the realities of your life, both the tangible ones and the intangible ones, and that allows you the ability to put a plan in place that you feel good about, that helps you keep those distractions at bay. That's really what I'm all about.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because I always say like the invisible load of motherhood. And there was an article that someone actually wrote and coined the phrase a couple of years back. I don't remember who it was, so I apologize to not give them credit, but it was such a profound concept, right? And the perfect example is I guess last week I had a whole list of things I needed to do. We had just gotten back from a very tedious, wonderful family vacation to Washington, D.C., where we walked 14 miles a day, seeing everything possible there was. And then we got home and I had piles of boxes needed to go through and content to create. And then my daughter hurts her finger playing basketball at recess, and the nurse calls and says, you need to bring her to the doctor. So then, of course, I have to stop. I have to try to find where I can get her in after school.
Yeah.
We go to the urgent care. They said, come right over. We can come right in. In the 30 seconds, it's literally up the street. There were 2 people in front of us. There were 40 minutes wait. The other appointment I had to be pushed. The next day, I spent half of my day, which was scheduled for something else, trying to find an orthopedist. Oh, you take my insurance, but can't see me for a month. You don't take my insurance, but can see me tomorrow. I must have called 8 different doctor's offices, finally saying to her, I can get you an appointment in 2 days. She texts me back, but my finger really hurts. Can we go today? So I start all over. Half the morning, right? Gone.
Yeah.
And then the bus pulls up and you're so stressed because the list in your mind doesn't get done because these invisible loads of motherhood take over, right?
100%.
And it's,
and for some women, even if it's not motherhood, it's caregiver mode, right? Maybe
Yep.
you've got aging parents and that's on your mind heavy, or the other family member that is struggling with something, and your significant other is just, they're in work mode. And so you're feeling all the feels for everybody all the time.
Right. And I feel like it also even, and my husband, to his credit, does all the cooking, does pretty much all the cleaning. And it's funny because he does those things, number one, to be helpful and because he's amazing at them, but also because I feel like those are his, should we say his languages of love, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
But like he, I don't care about cleaning. He cares about cleaning. He wants it done a certain way. By all means, enjoy. I'm more than happy to cook. He's a better cook. By all means, enjoy, right? So it's like, I feel like when you're both at home and doing this like dance of running your lives, each person takes on what they're better at, which I think to a degree,
or what they
some
like.
Efficiency, or what exactly.
Because I always get that, oh, but you're so good at it. I'm like, but I hate it. So that
Yes.
doesn't make it okay.
Yes. One can be good at something, but not enjoy doing it. And that doesn't mean that they have to do it. But like we joke about the dishwasher, and I coined myself an excellent dishwasher loader. So he sometimes says to me, and he's always like, you're so good at Tetris also. And I'm like, yes, I'll load the dishwasher. But like, I know that I can get all the dishes in one dish load,
Yep.
whereas he like puts one thing in. So it's like, I know that's I said to my friends the other day when I got an entire sink into the dishwasher, and I wrote them, and I was like, I truly believe my legacy should be that I'm an excellent dishwasher loader. And they were like,
logistics. Maybe you could have had a massive career in logistics,
So they were like, I really hope that's not what your legacy is. And I'm like, but I really feel good about that. But, so I think it's a lot of those other things that, but then you get a phone call from the teacher that your kid did something. And
Yeah.
Again, talking about that invisible load of motherhood, and I'm generalizing here, but like, how often do you think a dad gets a phone call that your kid said something, or that
Only when you don't answer the phone,
or that you forgot to bring, your kid's lunch in? I forgot to bring it. Not the fact that for a half hour, I said to my kid, pack your lunch, pack your lunch, pack your lunch. Where's your lunch? Check your bag. Is your lunch? Yes. Then the teacher calls and says, you forgot to give them lunch. No, I remembered. I reminded. They forgot to take it. And then it's like that little schmitch of guilt where you're like, come on.
Yep.
But yes, all of these invisible loads of motherhood, which then push our time management and our lists in our head, and it's almost like, how do you triage what's the most important to make sure that every day you wake up and you get X done? So my thought is, and I'm super dorky when it comes to like alliteration. So do I want to say like Motivation Monday, or like, Talk to Me Tuesday, where like, and in my own head where it's like, it's like Taco Tuesday, where, do you want to do like Word Wednesday, where I write a blog post every Wednesday?
See, you can't, because the realities of your life aren't going to let you do that, right? Because all of a sudden next Wednesday, guess what? Your phone's going to ring at 9 a.m. and your kid's going to be sick. So this is what I mean by we have to have a system in place that addresses the realities of our integrated life. When I first started work, I'm old, a lifetime ago, it was a big deal when I was issued a pager. Like, oh my God, I had a pager. And no one had computers at home. I mean,
Right.
You did not have a home computer. So when you left work, you left work.
Yeah.
It was very hard. People just didn't call you at work either, because then your friends could hear your phone ringing in your cube, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, when I got issued that pager, it was like, if this software system went down, I would get paged. It didn't happen very often, but when it did, if I wasn't at home, guess what I was doing? I was finding a quarter and going to a payphone. So this, but I mean, I laugh at it now, but I'm like, it wasn't that long ago.
Yes.
Now we all walk around with high-powered computers in our pockets. And yet when you look at the traditional time management training systems out there, they're teaching the same stuff they taught when I wasn't walking around with a computer in my pocket, and they aren't addressing the fact that we are now. And so those things just don't work.
And I think a big part of that too is similar to what I said before, where it's like, there's no office hours, right? You didn't say like, okay, Bob, bye, see you tomorrow. And then you walk out, and if Bob had an issue, you talk to him at 9 a.m. the next day. You know, it's, I'm responding to emails at 2 o'clock in the morning, and people are like, why are you up so late? And I'm like, I don't know, but I have 300 emails I'm trying to get to, or else it's going to stress me out. And then I'm going to start tomorrow in the hole. You know, I've noticed that on the weekends I get less emails, so I kind of play catch up a little bit there. And my husband's always like, why do you get so many emails? Just delete them. And I'm like, every day I unsubscribe and delete. And I don't even know, it's like, you know, more emails just come through, and
they do. It's crazy.
They don't end. And so, okay, so I have a bunch of questions. So I would like to know, you know, some of this is relevant, some of this is just kind of about you, but let's start with the basics. So like, where did you grow up? You said you live in North Carolina now. Like, where are you from? What's kind of your pre-work story?
We grew up, my father was in the Marine Corps, so a lifer. So we grew up moving around quite a bit. I was actually born in Beirut, Lebanon, of all places, which is kind of interesting. But we lived on the East Coast, kind of Northern Virginia area a couple times. We were out in California for a little bit. Back then, the military was very different, where it was a lot more, particularly in the Marine Corps, he would leave and we didn't get to go with him. Now they do a lot more, you know, family trips. So it was a very fluid, ever-changing life. I have 2 older sisters. And so it was either the 4 ladies when dad was gone, or if dad was home, then, you know, then we were all home together.
Wow. And so you said that you were into like IT. I don't even know if it was called IT back then, system technologies or whatever it was. No. How did you get into that field?
Yeah. So again, that was kind of like a Briar Rabbit situation for me. It was really cool. So I was a math major in college. I went to William & Mary, the tribe, and thought I was going to be a math teacher, but realized that would mean a 5th year of college to do student teaching. I was like, you know, I'm out of here in 4 years. I'd like to have a diploma. So we'll just do the math and call it a day. And wasn't 100% sure what I was going to do with it. I had taken a computer programming class and was like, I don't think I like this very much. But managed to get a job at again, I'm old, Bell South, back when we actually had landlines and phone companies. And actually, no, I guess my first job was something different. It was very short. So then I kind of landed into Bell South, where they were just looking for willing to invest in young, you know, go-getters that they were going to train them on the technology. And I at least had 1 year of computer science. So they hired me on, and over a couple months, it became pretty apparent that being the actual developer was not my strong suit. And this was back, and then we started getting prepped for Y2K. Like, everyone was all nervous about what was going to happen there as my career went on. And so they asked for some, I guess we were prepping like 3 years ahead. We knew something was coming. Long story short, they realized this was not a great fit for me. And so they, quote, punished me by moving me over to the testing team, where our job was to actually break the stuff. Oh, wow. And I was like, if someone had told me that this was a job, like, I would have signed up for this. I fell in love with it. And it was all just around, you know, puzzling, solving the problems. Why isn't this working? Figuring out creative ways to break it, which then led me into, as my career grew, creating, you know, assessing the entire development process as a whole. Wow. How do we make this better? Where could we possibly break down? How do we plug the holes in to fix this? And how can we actually start building and developing the things that we promised on time? So that's kind of where I, you know, weaved and flowed through the years, worked through tons of different domains, but again, all in the software space. So anything and everything from healthcare to online, you know, eBay, Amazon, et cetera, to I spent a lot of time in the aviation world as well.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So it seems like that's the constant, the puzzle. So you're probably very good at loading a dishwasher also.
Indeed I am. Yes. But I will say,
and so you probably like Tetris also, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I do love me
You're
some
probably
Tetris.
old enough to know Tetris like I know Tetris.
Oh yeah.
So I can see how it would be a very organic transition into this world where you're fitting into pieces.
Yeah.
But
And
what
for me,
kind of
it
led
really,
you? Yeah.
you know, I got married later in life. I started a family later in life. And at that time I had a system I'd been using for years to plan and manage my days, and all of that served me very well. And I can remember, God, I was so stupid being in Target and seeing a mom with a young child and just looking like they were at the end of their rope, just like, fine, here, take the candy, whatever. And I remember stupidly being like, God, like that will so never be me.
We've all been that mom in Target.
Shame on you, Megan, because that is so me. And so I found myself after my daughter was born, I was, juggling this full-time career and was wanting to start a business because I just knew, while I loved what I did, I didn't have the time freedom, the flexibility that I needed. God, I remember this one day being called by the preschool. My daughter was 3. And they're like, you need to come. And my husband's not here. And I needed to be giving a presentation to a board of directors of the FAA in 10 minutes. And I'm like,
oh my goodness.
and I had to call my boss. And I mean, it was not a pleasant conversation. And that day I'm like, something's got to give. Like, I got to figure something out. Right. And so I'd always had a desire to work for myself, but I mean, I liked what I did. I did some consulting, so I kind of felt like I had it. But shortly thereafter, I had this one day where it was a Friday afternoon in the fall here. And it was right after she turned 3 and we were at the park. And at this point I was dabbling in like a network marketing company for some extra revenue. And the woman next to me starts chatting. And at one point in the conversation, she just nicely asks, "What do you do for fun?"
What's that now? When does that happen?
And I sat there, I froze, and I was like, holy crap, I don't have an answer. And I didn't even know I didn't have an answer.
Slapped you in the face, huh?
And that night I remember going home. I don't remember what I said to her. And I wish there was something like, I don't know how I mumbled through that. But what I do remember was being in my closet that night, because that's where we go to hide. Right.
Yes.
And I just remember crying, and I cried for a really, really long time. And at first I cried because I couldn't remember the last time I'd had fun. Like, it broke my heart. Yeah. And then I cried because I felt so flippin' guilty, because on the outside, on paper, I finally, quote, had everything I ever wanted. Having our daughter was not an easy journey for us. So here I was, married with a child. Finally, I had a great career, a nice home, all of that, the dog, the whole 9 yards. And I was like pretty much depressed, like in a mild state of depression all the time, because every day was wake up, gentlemen, start your engine. How the hell am I going to get all this stuff done? And then collapse into bed at night, feeling guilty for what didn't get checked off the list, exhausted, and then waking up and doing it all over again. And nowhere in there was I having any fun.
Yeah.
And so I kind of laid in bed that night, and then all of a sudden it hit me. I was like, you do this for a living, Megan. You go in to organizations that are like, this is not working, fix it. So how about you take yourself on as a client? Great. And so I did. So with no intent other than to get myself out of the hole I was in. Right. And so I threw away everything I'd been doing. I was like, there's got to be something. I was looking at me, and I went all in, and I ended up building a system that was working really well for me. And friends and family started noticing a difference. They're like, you look so much lighter, and I was like, yeah. Wow. And I started giving a couple talks at some local women networking groups here in the area around, juggling motherhood and work and all of that, and some of the strategies I was using. And finally it got to the point where some people said, can I hire you? Like, can you teach me this? And I was like, I don't know. Let me think about it. Yeah. So I went back home that night, and I was like, could I unpack what I'm doing and build this into a framework that I could teach other people? So I sat on that for a while, and I was like, I can. And so the first couple of people, I was like, tell you what, I'm not going to charge you for this. Yeah. Because I haven't proven that this is going to work outside of me. I believe it will, because of the theory behind it all. And long story short, now here I am, 9-ish years later, I've fully left corporate, And I have created, this is called the TOP framework. It's time management, organization, and productivity. It is a solution that has now served thousands of women in every stage variation of empty nesters, new moms, single women, full-time at home, juggling careers, juggling entrepreneurship, because the principles apply to everybody. And it's just been incredible.
Well, congratulations. That's amazing. That's
I'm on
it's
a mission to
amazing.
make sure every woman can answer the question, what do you do for fun?
Yeah, no,
We
but I
have
think
that.
it's such an interesting moment. That's such a like non-invasive question could be
Such
so
small talk.
life-changing, right?
I know. I
Right?
wish I could meet that woman again today and thank her from the bottom
Wow.
of my heart for asking me that question. That makes, if she didn't, I might still be in that rat race. I don't know.
That's amazing. I love going back. It's like, I don't know if you remember the movie Sliding Doors, where it's like,
Yes.
so we talk about things like that all the time, where it's like a defining moment that your life is so
Mhm.
drastically changed and something she could have turned to the next person and said, what do you do for fun? And the woman goes, I love to go for hikes. And that was it.
Yeah.
But like, isn't that amazing that this simple question had such a profound change in your life? I love that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And it also tells me that you have a closet big enough to sit in, which makes me a little bit jealous.
No, now I do. Back then that's why I went in there, because you couldn't see anything. So I could hide in there.
Got it. So I like to hide in our downstairs bathroom. And many years ago, I believe when my youngest was born, I gifted myself for Mother's Day a subscription to Us Weekly. And I'm not really like I don't watch reality shows. I'm not like a celebrity follower. I don't care about that stuff, but I feel like this magazine is delicious. So I hide down there and I read Us Weekly. And during like the heat of the pandemic, when everyone was home, at one point, my husband put up a sign that said staff lounge, no children allowed on the outside of the door. I almost fell over when I saw that. I was laughing so hard. They're like, why can't we go to the bathroom? And he's like, no, when mommy's in there, it's a staff lounge. You're not allowed to go in there. I thought that was funny. But anyway, so getting back to the point. So it's interesting that you said both time management and productivity. And I'm curious to talk a little bit about how you see those things tied in and married to each other, and also how you see them differently and how you can kind of work on both.
Yeah. So, the framework of my whole system, there's actually three components. There's time management, there's organization, and I'm not talking about your decluttering your stuff. I'm talking about organization of information and ideas, the ticker tape nonstop, right? The things that are coming at you, because that's very different than getting rid of paper clutter in your home. Very different. Yeah. And then the third is productivity. And the reason why, people say, oh, you're a productivity coach. I'm like, no, I'm a time management expert, because you cannot, I guess I can't say you cannot. You could be productive without having good time management skills, but I was very productive for a very long time and I was exhausted and miserable.
Yes, that's what I am now.
You have to layer the time management in there to get what I have as my definition of productivity, which is getting the most important things done in a way that doesn't stress you out.
Mm-hmm.
So I was getting all the things done, but I wasn't getting the most important things done in a way that didn't stress me out. That's what layering in that time management. So the kind of three components to time management that I break down. One is realistic. Women are notoriously unrealistic for how much time we actually have to get stuff done. So there's some tools I can teach that show you like, no, you actually don't have 7 hours. Yet you say your kids are gone for 6 hours a day at school, but guess what? You actually don't have 6 hours to get things done. Let's get realistic about that. So there's the realistic part of it. There is the alignment part of it, where we need to learn the strategies to learn how to map certain tasks that we need to get done into the right times of our day to maximize efficiencies. Mm-hmm. So like for me, any kind of a task that requires writing or creative, I really need to do it before 11 a.m. Mm-hmm. I can do it after 11 a.m., but it's going to take me twice as long.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then that third part of the time management part is boundaries. Boundaries is a word that's being used a lot, but when I talk about boundaries, it is when you learn the right way to create a plan for your week, it empowers you when things are coming at you, asking of your time, asking of your attention, for you to clearly see, here's what I can and can't say yes and no to. And you can do it without guilt because you've got the realistic, you've got the alignment.
Right.
So when something comes in, I can be like, I'd love to do that, but this isn't a great week for that. So that's really the time management side. The productivity side of things then is when we start to layer in, what tools are you going to use to optimize for yourself? What are there's a whole bunch of planning processes that go into that as well, so that then we can, and then there's that prioritization element, so that we make sure we're spending our times on the things that actually matter.
So what do you think are some of the biggest time management mistakes and some of like the biggest time sucks?
Okay. Well, I think we all know what the biggest time suck is, right? It's the fact that we walk around with a computer in our pocket.
Yep.
I found this fascinating study. It was done in 2018. And so, the number is bigger now, but it said that we have on average 35 gigabytes of data per day coming at us through technology.
Wow.
Now, to put that in context, that would blow up your laptop in 1 week.
Yeah. Well, I'm at the point right now on my phone, which I got in 2018, where, it keeps saying memory filled. So then I sit and I'm trying to delete, the biggest video, or going through my text and trying to delete it and deleting the deleted and taking off the app.
Yeah. And so I love technology. It has done so much for us. It allows me to work from home. Like, it has opened up so much, but what we haven't done with it is put any sort of boundaries or controls or anything around it. And we live in this instant gratification. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think I've Amazon Prime 10 things already today, and it's noon. So we're in this instant right now culture. So our phone is at us all day long, that it is constantly distracting us. And so one of the things I like to teach people are how to actually set up your phone to minimize distractions and help you stay focused. So like, my phone never makes a noise, a flash, a bleep, or anything unless it's school calling or my spouse. Like, it literally does not talk to me unless it's one of those two things. That way, I'm not being pulled at it. And if it makes a noise, it's almost jarring to me, because I'm like, oh my God, this is an emergency.
Right,
so it's no longer just background noise. And so then I can create routines around, here are the times of day where I will now proactively sit down, pull out my phone and say, now I'm ready to handle what's in here. And then I get in and I get back out. So I think that is 100% the biggest time suck that we have, is that we have computers talking at us in our pocket all day long. The biggest time management mistake that it's a little controversial, because I go against what I think most time management people teach, is everybody is still stuck in this mode of daily planning. Meaning, you wake up in the morning, you were talking about, what do I need to get done today? Right?
Yeah.
Go create a task list, which, newsflash, ladies, you aren't going to get the list done. I'm just here to tell you, like, stop having the dream.
Yeah.
And then you go at it all day long. And then we go at it where we sit down, we're like, okay, finally I get something done. And we look at the list of maybe 19 things or so. And then what are we going to pick? In that moment, your brain, there's neuroscience behind this. It can't prioritize 19 things. It can't. So you're going to scan it for like the low hanging fruit. Yeah. And 99% of the time, the low hanging fruit is not the best use of your time. And so we don't have the alignment. We don't have a plan. I always say a task list is not a plan. If you make a list for your day, you do not have a plan. You have a task list. And so then we go about trying to get this thing done all day. And every time we check something off, we add 3 more, because we're 35 gigabytes of data coming at us. And then we collapse into bed at night. And so sadly, there are still thousands of planners and planning systems out on the market today that are this daily planner. And I used to use one. And tell me if this resonates with you. I would sit down on Monday, my work day, and I get my list, my task list for the day, not a plan, just a list. And then on Tuesday morning, what did I spend the first 10 minutes doing? Rewriting everything from Monday's page over to Tuesday's page that didn't get done, added in a bunch more. And by Friday, I'm like, I have rewritten this thing 5 damn times. Like, is it ever going to get done?
Yeah.
So this is where I believe this, push on wake up, create your plan for the day, list your top 3 priorities. It doesn't work. So the foundation of everything I teach is a concept of creating a weekly plan at the start of every week. Now, what day you do it is up to you. I typically do mine on Sundays afternoons. You want to be in a calm, mindful, not anxious place when you're actually creating your plan. But when we can sit back, and I have a basic 5-step process and a more advanced 10-step process, but the whole structure of how I teach people to create their weekly plan is we are learning, getting visibility into the realities of how much time do you really have. Now let's marry it with, here's the things you're hoping to get done this week. And now let's very intentionally not just put task lists to the day, but get that alignment piece of, you know what, maybe I don't do that on Monday. Maybe I wait until Wednesday to do those 3 things, because Wednesday morning I have an opening and I know I do that work so much better in the morning. So I'm not even going to stress out about it on Monday.
Right.
I'm going to, schedule that in for Wednesday instead. And there, there's this whole concept of tasks versus appointments that I encourage people to embrace, but it really is taking the step back and saying, stop this daily grind task list mentality and lean into, no, let me address the realities of my life. Let me look at my week comprehensively. Let me understand how much flex time I need to build in, and now get a plan in place that feels good. Like today, I broke every rule of the productivity experts on the pick your top 3. Today is a day, no offense, where I am not working on any of the top 3 most important things in my life or business today, because the realities of my day were lots of meetings with 20-minute breaks. Those 20-minute breaks it's not worth it for me to start on any of those things.
Right.
But I feel really good about that, because today I'm knocking out all the lower level stuff that just needs to churn and get done. Now, tomorrow I'm going to be honed in on my top 2, and they're going to get my full attention. You wouldn't have that when you're in that daily stressful place.
That's interesting. So my family makes fun of me a lot because I use my calendar, on my phone, my calendar all the time. And like, I'll put in, the night before. I like to kind of lay the groundwork for the next day, the night before, or sometimes I do it.
And that's better than nothing. Out. I mean, that's better than nothing.
Right. So like, I'll put, write whatever, or order this, or, schedule that. So then the next day I look at my calendar, and like you said, appointments versus tasks, I don't even know what they're called, but I have it in my calendar. So when I look at my phone to see what do I have to get done, I'm like, oh, right, I forgot I have to post about whatever. So that's interesting. So
and if you're only doing it on your phone, here's why I say, like, you can't use your phone as your planner, as your go-to, because you don't see enough information. So if I were to be like, hey, are you free for lunch next Tuesday? And you pull up your phone, you have to zero into Tuesday, and you might see, hey, I am free. And you say yes. What you didn't see was your whole week, that maybe that was literally like the one day that you had a good chunk of open time. And now guess what? Now I've just taken that from you. And this is why our society today is constantly overbooked, because we're making yes, no decisions about our time on a screen size this big, when we can't see comprehensively, like, ooh, you know what? This is a full week. How about I say, let's push it to the following week instead, because this was the one chunk of time I had available to like sit down and really work on maybe those writing tasks where I need that window. I can't just jump in for 10 minutes and jump back out.
I think that's interesting. And like I said, we just got back from a trip, and, obviously one of the best things that I use my phone for is taking pictures and videos, and then writing about them and using them as my content. And so my son, who's 8, has gotten really into taking pictures lately. And so I said to him, like, why don't I clean up one of our old digital cameras so you can use that to take pictures? Because he's like, I need a phone, I want pictures. And I'm like, well, you don't need a phone, you need a camera. I said, I use mine as both, but you are 8, you don't need that. So then I was thinking how there was such simplicity about just picking up a camera and taking pictures. And now it still is there in my phone. But like you said, with all the notifications, you go to take a picture and then you get an alert or a text or something, and then you stop in your tracks, and then everyone gets annoyed at you and blah, 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 blah. And so I tried very hard when I was away to not be on my phone as a phone and only to be on it as a camera. But it's true. There's so many. I mean, look, I think it's such a double-edged sword because our phones have opened up a world of possibility for us, right?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, on your next trip, if you're wanting to do that, here's a little tool that I'll use when we're on a family vacation. And say, like, I want my phone for pictures. Is when we are heading out for the day, I put my phone in airplane mode.
Yep. I did that one day. Yep.
If I'm pulling out my phone, nothing. So it's just my camera until I've made, and if it's a trip where I'm like, no, I do need to check in at night, then I do that from my computer, not my phone.
Oh, that's interesting. And then when you turn it on, it's like, blup, 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 and you're like, oh, am I
well,
ready?
Not so much. Well, again, it doesn't have to if you set it up.
Right. No, I know.
Not over, but yeah, for most of us, it's like, and now that 35 gigabytes, 4 days worth comes at you.
And also it helps with battery, which is good. That was a challenge that we had, that we would leave the hotel in the morning and not come back till so late that we all, we brought the, like the little charger things with us, the battery packs, but it's just, you don't realize how much you're consuming of so much.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like you're more about like looking at your week holistically and putting in like a game of Tetris, how everything happens
very much,
versus like the concept. Because I've heard some people say, I set a timer and I only do this for 30 minutes, or I, schedule this block of time. But it seems like you want to get out of that logistics and make it more holistic.
Well, and I mean, I am a lover of time blocking.
Right.
And there are times when timers are fantastic, especially for people with ADHD. I do coach them on certain strategies for leveraging timers. So those, one of the 3 parts on my little productivity piece was the tools. Those are some tools that are available, but the more corporate style of time blocking, which is what I was taught 2 years ago, is, every Monday from 9 to 11 should be, customer wrap. Like, I don't know, but my Monday, this Monday looks nothing like last Monday. It's nothing like, you can't set that in place. Right. But when I'm sitting down to do my weekly plan, I am doing that Tetris of maybe grouping together. Hey, look, I've got, 4 tasks this week that I know I do them quicker. Like, let's say you content, maybe you're writing a newsletter and 2 emails. Mm-hmm. I could do it better if I sat down and did them all 3 at once instead of 1 on Monday. So in that area, now I might create a time block for write your content and newsletters, but then I'm going to take it 1 step further. If it's something that takes a chunk of time, I'm not going to make it a task. I'm going to put it as an appointment on my calendar. Okay, Megan, Monday, from 10:30 to 11:30, appointment in the calendar. This is when you're writing the stuff that you're going to get done. And then if something happens, if school calls, because it will, I can now, in that moment, instead of freak out and now think, now I got to stay up tonight, I can look at the rest of my weekly plan and say, can I take this 1-hour appointment and reschedule it for maybe Wednesday? Then I go, you got this, Megan. It's okay. Let it go. Go be present where you need to be. And we now know we've got that chunk of time on Wednesday where we're going to get caught up on these 3 things that we didn't get done. So I do wholeheartedly believe in time blocking. I just take a different kind of strategy to how and when we apply it. And for most of us, especially moms, when was the last time you had a 3-hour time block? Like, right. Yeah.
No, but I think that's true, because what I've learned is I get a lot of companies sending me, their products that they want me to write about and talk about and make videos of. And I've learned that when I do all of them at the same time, bum, 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 it's much more efficient. But, it's just the same. Whereas if you have, 5 errands to run, sometimes I'll put them in Google Maps.
That's when I'll always do it. Yes. And that's one of the things I'll always give as an example of like maximizing efficiencies. Don't run 1 errand a day, get the map, knock it all out. And be done. Like this week, I'm doing a lot of video recording myself. And again, I was like, well, I could have jumped in and done a couple videos this morning, but it's so much better for me to wait till tomorrow. I have 2.5 hours to get all the equipment up.
Yeah.
So I let all that low level stuff stack up all week long. And then today was just, let's just get all those 5-10 minute things just knocked out and be done.
No, I think that's great. So let me ask you, we spoke a little bit about how we both work from home. So how do you manage all of like the menial household chores that need to get done when they are looking at you?
So first and foremost, I encourage everyone, you do not have to have a dedicated home office or anything like that. I worked at home for over 10 years before I had a home office with a door on it. Like, this is new to me. I don't know if you know this, but we were on Love It or List It. So that's why I have my home office.
That's exciting. Very nice.
But what I do encourage everyone who works from home to is you need to have a dedicated workspace, even if it moves. Because before I had a home office, it would be some weeks it was the dining room, other weeks it was the guest, sometimes it had to move. But I teach people how to create, if it is mobile, then you need to have like an office in a bag or one of those rolling carts, so that when you go to work, you are physically leaving the noise of whatever and you're working. And then when you're done with work, you actually shut it down and put it away and then regain the rest of your house. And I always like, the number one room in your house that you really can't, what you cannot do is sit on your bed. You cannot bring your work to your bed ever. It will like ruin sleep and sex and all the things for you.
Yeah.
So
boundaries. It sounds like it's setting boundaries.
Yeah. Having that clear distinction of work versus home is a game changer. So like even on the weekends, then Saturday, I really just never even walk in here. So I'm like, no, this is the weekend. I just need to. And when I had my, what I called office in a bag, the bag was tucked away. The rolling cart was in the corner. Like it was just there. It wasn't set up, tempted for me to jump in and out of. And then I love leveraging routines. So I have a lot of little 5-10 minute routines that we've kind of established here as a family. And Katie, I'll tell you what, Katie Joy Wells is an expert in this. She is a declutter, particularly with young kids, expert. And I love it how she calls it the reset. So she'll have like 3 times a day, particularly if your young kids are at home, where it's like, hey guys, we're doing the downstairs reset, 5 minutes, go. And everybody knows what their role is in terms of picking up and putting things back.
Ooh, I like that.
Isn't that great? And so
I realize when I say to my kids, I'm like, Zoo protocol, come on. And they know exactly what to do.
And if they're young enough, you can have a little chart of like what that means. But I notice like in the mornings when I'm like breakfast, lunches, all that, and getting, kid to school and all of that, there is a reset routine that I do in the kitchen and kind of the downstairs space every morning, so that once she's off at school and I'm ready to start work, none of that's distracting me. But I do it all in about 10 minutes. I do another one when we're now transitioning out of work to, I've just picked her up from school. I only get to work till 1:30. I have to leave for a carpool line. So we have a lot of afternoon.
Early. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then there's an after, like the after dinner, the reset after dinner. And so having those in just like little 5-10 minute chunks. So that way throughout the day when I'm working, like if I go make lunch or whatever, I sat down and ate this right before a call, I can just go put that in the sink and I'm not going, I'm like, no, I'll catch that in the afternoon reset. But just little 5-10 minute things like that, and having those routines in place helps me separate work time, home time.
That's interesting. So you say reset, but it's really like tidying up and getting what needs to be done.
Yeah. Everything going back to where it needs to be.
Yeah, sure.
If things are lying around, let's put them all back. Like if your shoes, let's get the shoes in the closet. If you brought some crafts down, let's get the craft stuff put away. And it really helps that things don't get out of control.
Yeah.
That it helps quiet my brain, that when I'm like, no, this is that coveted 4.5 hours I get when she's calling me to do something. Yeah. If I walk by and see it, I'm not tempted because I'm like, oh, I'll get that in the afternoon reset.
I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that one of the things I say to my kids when I'm yelling at them to clean up their room, whenever I do, is if you just put it away instead of throwing your shirt on the floor, if you just put it away, like just a few minutes every day would mean that you don't then spend all of this time on the weekends. But no, I think that's actually a really interesting takeaway, and I'm going to try to do that. I know we're getting a little bit tight on time. And I was laughing because the school just texted me, which if you notice, I went to my phone for a moment because obviously life imitates art, but I will get back to them in just a few moments. So let's see. I mean, I know that the concept of like feeling overwhelmed, we've discussed some ways to feel less overwhelmed and some things to put in place to kind of take that out of the way. I guess my question is, how do you then play something that I find, in addition to my phone, very overwhelming, is social media. And, we're both women that have our own companies that understand, that you have to do the work, but then you also have to do the job. And, you have to do all of the things, you have to catch all these balls to be on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and promotion, but you also then have to do the work that you're promoting. So how do you set up, like, I try to post on Instagram once a day with a reel. When I was on vacation, because I was working with a bunch of different clients there, I just had so much that I didn't want to be posting for, a month about DC. So I did 2 a day, but I noticed that doing 2 a day took my entire week, and it ate my entire week because I was doing the videos, then I was writing it. And because it was for a client, I was so meticulous, and I want, and I'm usually good with the reels and they don't take too long, but it became this monster. And I feel like that whole week after my trip was absorbed by that. So like, how do you manage all of that stuff?
Now, full disclosure, I am now at a point in my business, I outsourced my social media. So I have a social media manager, but I did not. I ran a solo shop for 2.5 years.
So what pushed you over the edge, and how do you qualify the quantifying of that?
I am a huge proponent of time audits. It's one of like, if you go through my program, it's how you spend your first week in my program, because you have to know how you're spending your time to know where your priorities are in terms of what changes we need to shift. Mm-hmm. And so, and I'm talking, so to me, there's 2 buckets of social media. There's, I'm working my business, social media time, versus I'm human. I like the next person like to sit there and kill time watching some reels as a consumer, not a producer. So my time audit started showing how much time I was spent producing on social media. And so it got to the point for me in business where I'm like, I will stay here at this revenue scale forever unless I free up this tremendous amount of time. Plus I had desires to be on more than one platform, right? Sure. But I knew if I do that, even though I was batching, even though I was prepping, I was taking every, hack that I could to minimize the amount of time. But that was my very first hire with my business, was getting that off my plate, because the data was showing me just how much time I was spent producing content for social media. And so after 1 week of my social media manager, I was almost like, I don't even know what to do with my time. Like, oh, look at all this time. It's amazing.
And was it hard to relinquish the control?
Well, so I am obviously a very systemized person. So I had very clear systems set up. And for the first month, I approved everything before it went out, because I wanted to make sure I was okay with it, until we got to a point I'm like, you got it. Like, we're good. Sure. Which any social media manager, anytime you bring someone on, that should be the process that you go through. So that was, I now have 5 different contractors on my team. So the business has grown quite a bit, but I think that is like the best first thing to outsource, is getting that off your plate, so that you can focus on. I love this quote from David Allen: your mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. And if you are spending all day long holding, you can't step back to create and do the things. Like for me, yes, being active on social media and posting, of course it grows my business, but I can outsource that. I can't outsource this master class that I am building and creating. And like, I need to stay in my zone of genius that only I can do around this business. So that was finally the tipping point where I just noticed that revenue flatline. And I'm like, I've got to free up more time, and I'm not going to do it by staying up later. I'm not going to do it by waking up earlier. That's not good. So what can I outsource? So now, I have that outsourced. That's been great.
I've heard that with some people, but then it's like, so if I get products sent to me, I have to videotape them, I guess, unless they're sent to whoever the manager is. But so, it's something that I thought of, because there's so much time I spend there that I think, could this be something I send to someone? But then you start thinking, like, how do I do this? There's people that are, overseas that can do it for you for such a small amount of money. But then is that a little bit fishy?
No, it is not. I will tell you, there is the best place to go for virtual assistants overseas is a website, onlinejobs.ph. It's in the Philippines.
I've heard the Philippines, yes.
Okay. They are, I hire and leverage many, and it's exceptional.
All right. So maybe that's something I need to explore. That's something I could do.
Yeah.
Okay. I know we only have a few minutes left. So let me see with my question. So now that you've said that line about the woman changing her life with wanting to know how you have fun, I'm actually very curious now to hear how you have fun. And I hope you have an answer.
Yes, I do a lot of things. And it's very different than how I had fun in my 20s and 30s, just because life is very different, right?
Like a glass of wine and Netflix is really fun.
It is, but I mean, honestly, it is. Time where I can just sit and be with my sisters or my parents is really fun for me. Being able to like travel is my happy place. I love to travel. So that is something now I proactively prioritize, and travel sometimes is just for me, but also with my family as well. I love to be outside. And one of the things I did extensively before motherhood was I love crafting, like paper crafts. And I was a big scrapbooker and all that before everything went digital. So now I brought that back into my life as well. And it's interesting, things that I used to love to do. Like I loved cooking and baking. I actually used to make wedding cakes. What's funny, I don't like that anymore, but it's because no one told you that you'd have to answer the question, what the hell's for dinner for the rest of your life, right? When you started a family. But so I've learned to let those go. I'm like, that's not fun for me anymore. So I'm not going to try and pretend like it is when it's not. And I love fashion. I love being able to go like to a mall or something and just cruise, browse, see what's there. Like that's enjoyment for me as well. And reading. I do a lot of reading.
I like all of those things too. And reading is an interesting thing. Reading is something I've been passionate about my whole life. And yet I feel like it's the first thing that kind of fell off my life once the world, took over, and kids and family. And it wasn't until one of my kids, I don't even remember if it was my daughter or my son, who they have to read every night for school. And one of them was like, why don't you sit and read with me? And I'm like, I can't read. This was years ago, before when my husband was working full time. And I said, I don't have time to read. I have to do the dishes and the this and the that. And then I was like, you know what? I don't. I'm going to sit with you and read for 10 minutes. And it was wonderful. And I finished books. And plus, what a message to give your kids, not only stopping what you're doing and sitting with them, but like reading is important. It became something that, yes. And I felt like I've gotten reading back into my life, and it's been wonderful.
And I found like where I fell off the reading wagon was, after becoming a mom, I found every book I read was about parenting or as a business book. So then it became a chore. I was like, why don't I like reading anymore? And I was like, well, Megan, when was the last, like, I'm a David Baldacci fan. I'm like, when was the last time you picked up a Baldacci book and just read for the enjoyment of reading? So now, I always have a educational book going, but now I've brought back in the books for pleasure.
I think that's good. And I think that that's something that we need for many different, I think it's not looking at our phone. I think it's sitting and relaxing. I hate the terms me time and self-care, but I feel like,
amen.
And sometimes
that's a whole other talk is my hatred.
But I always joke that sometimes my me time and self-care is sitting in my driveway in my car for an extra 10 minutes if I'm by myself, and like not going in my house.
Yeah, no, that's, that's just called mental health. Like, let's quit these whole like pictures of my toes sticking up in a bubble bath on a Tuesday night, hashtag self-care. I'm like, no, that's just hygiene and relaxation. Like, we are so starved for things that fill us up that we're now calling.
I know anything. I know anything that I feel like you do. I'm changing the toilet paper roll, hashtag self-care. So I know I want to be mindful of your time, but I wanted to just ask you one more question, and then I wanted to ask you 5 rapid fire questions just for fun. So I want to finish with, how do you start your day? What does your morning look like?
So I am a huge advocate of morning routines, but I will share mine with you with the caveat that I am not telling you to do it.
Okay.
Because a morning routine needs to be based on your personality type and your current constraints and schedule of your life. So all these people who are out there publishing books on here's the 5 things you need to do to be a productive person every morning, they need to stop. Because what's interesting, and I'm very passionate about this, because all of the things that they tell you to do in the morning, I can't do in the morning. They do not work for me. But then I found this study that showed scientifically why those don't work for my personality Like,
Interesting.
so, and notice all the ones, like all the morning routines that you wake up and you meditate for 5 minutes and you journal, they're all men without young children. Like, well, yeah, that's easy for you. If I were to do that, I'd have to wake up at 3:30 to get all that in before I'm now serving everybody else. So I do wake up early because I need it. I am a raging introvert. And if my day starts with someone talking at me in the first 10 minutes, it's just not good for, like, it's just not good for anybody.
You need like one of those sweatshirts with a cat holding a mug that says like not a morning person.
Yeah. But it's funny. I am very much a morning person, just not extroverted morning person.
Just as long as no one's talking to you or near you.
So I get up, my alarm goes off at 5:15. I'm usually downstairs about 10 minutes later with my dog, feed her, let her out. I make a little cup of lemon water. If I'm really dragging, I'll make a cup of coffee. And then I do what every productivity expert tells you not to do. And I walk into my office and I process my email. And I review my plan for the day. And then I go get my daughter up, do the breakfast, pack the lunches, exercise, walk the dog, come home, get showered, do all of that. It's now 8:30 when I've already been up for 3 hours. And then I come into my office. Now that is when I can journal for a couple minutes. I have a gratitude journal that I like to do. And I challenge myself to meditate for 1 minute. That's it. Cause it's really flipping hard for me, but I know it's good to help me quiet my brain.
Right.
And then I read a chapter. So all of that.
A chapter of a pleasure book or a business book?
Of a business book.
Okay.
And because it helps me with creativity. So every person would tell you not to look at technology, right? And to do any of that. But the way my personality works, I am an INTJ and I am a perfectionist overachiever. Which is, may sound nice. It's hell. Let me tell you, it's like,
oh, no, I share your hell. Yes.
But
yes, table for
if
two.
I can, and I have I have 8 email boxes that I have to process, but I have a systematic way of doing it.
Me too.
Then looking at my plan for the day, that quiets my brain. If I don't do that, if I try and journal and meditate and yoga, all that's happening is, oh my God, like the anxiety, it's building and building and building. And then I flip out. So that's how I quiet my brain so that I'm ready to say, now I'm ready to be open and kind of connect with myself before I launch into work.
So it's funny. It's almost like you feed the beast to squelch the anxiety. I get that. So I have equally, go take some water. I have something like 8 emails as well. And it's like a running joke that people are like, well, which email should I send this to? And I'm like, well, what is it in reference to? Is it about school? Is it about my blog? Is it something personal? Is it about, PTA? Then you go to the appropriate email. And they're always like, why do you do that? I'm like, because if I need to just see what I need to do for the PTA, I click on PTA and then all of them are there. If I need to see what, clients I need to get back to, I click on the blog. I said, if it was in one inbox, my brain would explode. Exactly. So it's interesting. I wanted
as well, so that if I'm on vacation, I'm only looking at one inbox. Yep. I can let the others go. Yeah.
Exactly what I did. Exactly. So you brought up something interesting that I want to touch on, and then we can move on to the rapid questions. So the concept of meditation. I was a big yogi for many, many, many years. And then when the pandemic hit, I canceled my gym membership. I tried to do it at home, but I failed. I did rage yoga, which was actually very fun.
Now that sounds like something I might actually like.
Yeah, I tried it a couple times where you basically like do the poses, namaste, and then just curse, and it's kind of amazing. And then, but meditation is one of those things that really is not in my world. I feel like I use this reference a lot about, like, remember Double Dutch, where there'd always be a kid that's like that, like waiting to jump in. I feel like meditation is one of those things that I've always been that kid where I'm like, I've tried it, I haven't been successful because I want to commit to a certain time. But just last night, I was saying to my husband, my birthday was on Tuesday, and I feel like instead of a New Year resolution, I want like a new year for my birthday resolution.
I love that.
And I was like, I want to meditate. So I said to him, could we together, or not together, but also at the same time, do this for 30 days? Because what I've read is you need to do it for a month for it to change your world and your life and your brain. And of course, he was not in favor of this, but I think I can get him to do it. But I said, I want to try it for a month where I'm really deep into it. And I want to see if after 30 days it worked. And I understand it's a journey, but so you said you do it for a minute.
Like the way I'm doing it, because again, I'm very like, I'm a rule follower. I like the list. I like the plan. So of course I'm like, well, how do you meditate? Let me, there's no rule book, but I feel more comfortable with guidance. So I work with a NLP coach. She's amazing. She's kind of my mindset guru, all things mental stuff. And so I use guided meditations. I can't, like, if I just sit in quiet, I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing? So I'm just sitting there stressing about what am I supposed to be doing? So I just do
that's what I was Googling last night.
So I just do a 1 minute guided meditation. And I challenge myself once a week to do a 3-minute one. And so I just have an app and I pull up, give me the 1 minute guided meditation. And I just listen, and you're just breathing, and then it guides you through what you should be thinking about. And that is like kind of where I'm at. And then on Fridays, I challenge myself to do the 3-minute.
Do you do it on the weekend also?
3 minutes, for the love of God. It's still very hard for me. But it's getting easier, and I do notice the difference.
I was going to ask,
I do it.
And do you do it on the weekends as well, or just during the week?
It's hit or miss on the weekends.
Okay. But you've noticed a change overall just in those short times, really? And how long have you been doing it?
Not super consistently, but I've been really focused on bringing it into my life now for about 6 months.
Okay. So it's long enough that you have noticed a change. That's amazing. That's what I want. Like
particularly with the guided, because whatever that guide is walking me through, like I'm very aware of noticing it all that day subconsciously. I like that.
I love that. All right. That's what I want to have as my New Year's resolution, my new birthday resolution. Okay. So
I like that.
Thank you. So this has been wonderful. So I am going to ask you 5 rapid fire questions, which I think you will not have trouble answering, and just whatever comes to your head first. Okay. So what are you reading?
I am just purchased the new David Baldacci book, but then I am listening to the Audible of Choose You at the moment.
Okay. And what are you eating? In general, of what are you like craving?
I am obsessed with my daily acai smoothie bowl. Like it is, I look forward to that every single day. It's a whole process, and I love it.
Yeah. Isn't it so ritualistic?
Oh yeah, it's so good.
I love that. What are you drinking? What is your beverage of choice these days?
I drink a lot of water, but I will say I just created a little grapefruit spritzer concoction that is a treat on a warm evening.
That sounds delicious. What are you watching? What kind of TV shows do you like to binge and watch?
my husband and I both are all about the CIA, FBI, like we are all in. So we just are about to finish up Ozarks right now.
We're watching that too. Yeah.
And then my daughter loves all of those as well. So we are now rewatching with her The Blacklist, which is so good.
I never watched that show before. I've heard good things. I like James. It's James Spader, right?
I think so. I'm bad at knowing people's names, but there's already like 8 seasons worth out there.
Oh boy.
It's good.
I love that. And then the last question I'll ask you is, what is number 1 on your list for the summer?
The number 1 on my list for the summer is, and I've put a lot of planning and preparation into this, is truly walking away from my business every other week for 2 months. So that's kind of how we have the summer structured for when my daughter's at home. Is there is a week where she'll be doing like a half-day camp and I get to work. And then there's a week of me not working and us doing something together. Wow. And summers have always been hard for me to juggle, but because I've invested in hiring in my team and put a lot of planning in place, both pre and post, I am really looking forward to truly unplugging for a good chunk of the summer.
That sounds great. And will your mind let you do that?
I believe it will, because of the planning preparations that I've done. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So are you, I know you said
check in with me in August. Yeah. I'll tell you how it went.
I'll talk to you in 6 months. But I know that you said you're a big traveler. So do you have any places on your bucket list for the summer to go?
Yeah. So my parents have a place at Smith Mountain Lake, and they let my family use it alone for a week every summer. So that's like our tradition. We go there for my daughter's birthday, but then my daughter and I are taking a mother-daughter trip to a camp out in Colorado, which is but I consider my home away from home. I spent every summer there for 20 years growing up, no matter where we were stationed, that's where we went. And she has now gone there, and they run a little family program. So her and I are going to go spend a week together there.
Oh, that's so special.
I'm really excited about.
And I saw in your bio, she was born in 2010, right?
Yes.
So my daughter also, my oldest, 2010 as well. So we're both dealing with the angst of a tween at the moment, right?
Oh, yeah. That brings me to that grapefruit spritzer that we chatted about. Yes.
Yes, I do agree with you. Well, thank you so much. This was so wonderful and so interesting. And I definitely have some takeaways. I love that reset. I love that because I feel like things won't feel overwhelmed if you put it somewhere and know that it's a short amount of time and finite. Yeah. And I love that. And so
I would tell you, I've got an app. I would encourage you to check it out because in it, it's just little trainings.
Yeah.
I show you a sample of me doing the basic weekly planning, what those 5 steps are and
cool.
how I create it. It's really, people are always kind of like, oh my God, okay, I hadn't even thought about that.
Wow.
So it's a good way to kind of check that out.
That's awesome. And besides, and what is your app called? How do people generally find you?
It's called ThePinkBee without any spaces. If you put the spaces in, Google won't show, but it's both App Store and Google Play. Okay. So just one word, ThePinkBee. It's $1.99 for the app. It's not a recurring subscription. It just pays for the hosting, but it's got 4 or 5 mini trainings in there on some of the stuff that we talked about here today. So that's just a great place to kind of get introduced to this time management system, at least parts of it. And then you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Megan Sumrell. And then the podcast is called The Work-Life Harmony, and that's out on all the podcast players as well.
That's great. And how often do you publish that?
That's every Tuesday. So there's 140 some odd out there now to go binge on. And I really try and keep at least all the newer ones over the last 6 months. If it's just a solo one with me, I'm keeping them at 10 minutes because we're all busy, right? Hey, listen to it on like 1.5 playback.
Yeah.
Give a little time nugget tip for you every week.
That's amazing. So is there anything else that you would like to leave as a final word?
I would tell you this, every person deserves to have work-life harmony, and we deserve to have it today. And we need to not keep stop using the excuse of when this stage of life is over, because after this stage, there's another stage right behind it. And so don't put it off. Just don't put off prioritizing learning how to control your calendar and manage your time.
I love that. That's true. There's always something else coming, right? So there's never an off ramp.
Nope.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so wonderful.
I'm going to get a picture so I can post.
Yes. Oh, great idea.
Yeah. Okay. Smile. Yay. Awesome.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. And you know what? Should I do that to you or do you want to send that to me?
I'll put it out and tag you.
Perfect. Oh, awesome. Great. Thank you so much and have a wonderful, I don't even know what day it is.
What are we doing? Where are we?
Have a wonderful grapefruit spitzer tonight. How about that?
Just might.
Have a great night. Thank you so much. Take care.
All right. Bye.